are living in some of the most wild and unprecedented times. It seems that every headline describes another insurmountable challenge that could drastically alter the world as we know it. There are days when I get fixated on the worst possible outcomes, speculating on what the future looks like for me and my family. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't scared. The truth is, what has my fear done to make my life any better? Nothing. In fact, when I'm focused on fear of what could possibly happen, there's a huge blind spot in my future. It becomes a lot more difficult to envision and create a better life for myself and my family. So I decided to put my phone down, go outside for a walk, and reflect on what really matters. When I awoke in the morning, the weather seemed to be quite cold and inhospitable. The reality turned out to be very different. It was the most perfect wintry morning. Everything was covered in a thin layer of white, and as I walked down the road, there was only the sound of my footsteps and the quiet and peaceful snowfall. Whenever I take the time to appreciate the pristine beauty of nature, it brings me into the present. The truth is, this moment, right now, is absolutely perfect. I have so much to be grateful for. A beautiful wife, a sweet newborn baby, an adorable pup, and a cozy home. I have an abundance of love in my life. It's not that I don't appreciate those things, but when I really think about it, my biggest fear is that some major world event could ruin the life I've worked so hard to build. Yet when my mind becomes so focused on fear of what could happen, I'm manifesting the exact chaos I'm trying to avoid. The mind is so powerful, and whether I'm conscious of it or not, my thoughts and beliefs are creating my reality. I choose to use the power of my mind wisely and to place my focus and intention on creating a better life for me and my family. Yeah, Olivia, I deleted my YouTube app today. In some way, I definitely feel like I'm a little bit addicted to my phone, especially YouTube. You know, the reality is people on YouTube create headlines to get people to click. And a lot of times it's like the scariest thing possible. And sometimes I'm not even sure if these people are actually experts, like they even know what they're talking about. There's so much information out there, it's overwhelming. And how do you even know what's true? And I've just been realizing that just as much as I'm learning about what's really happening, I'm also watching all this propaganda that's designed to get me scared. I just decided like I need to keep my peace of mind because I want to focus on what I can create in this world. You know, I don't want to focus on things that haven't even happened yet to be afraid of.
Yeah, I mean, it's my belief that the whole of what we're experiencing, both as individuals and collectively, is our consciousness, our perceptions objectified, right? What we believe, what we think is what we create. And so it's a very intentional practice for me to not tap in to all of these things, to not tap into the wars, the government's schemes, the movies on TV about the trauma of birth, you know, all of these things, because as we pay attention to these things, we consent to them, right? Like I watch this and eventually I believe this and then I create this.
We're always creating our world, whether we're conscious of it or not. And what I notice happening is I get afraid of the things happening in the world. And then what I'm visualizing is a future where there's this giant roadblock. There's World War III, there's diseases, there's all this stuff happening that is a roadblock for me envisioning a world where I'm creating something beautiful for myself and our family. And I notice that when I get in those modes where I feel afraid and I'm like scrolling YouTube trying to inform myself, I notice that I'm not as interested in working towards my dreams because it almost feels like it's impossible then, because there's all this stuff that's happening that's in the way of me creating the thing that I want to create. Legitimately, I just like to cut out the middleman and create my own world and focus on the ways that I can make my life better and our family's life better, because that's the most important thing.
Yeah, I think the question really is are we actually informing ourselves or are we scaring ourselves? And are we contributing to the perpetuation of the things that we don't want to see existing, right? Am I informing myself by reading headlines, watching the news, or am I participating in those things? Because we do participate. We are participants in the things that we pay attention to.
Whether we like it or not, we're a participant.
Yeah, and I talk about this with with clients and my community quite often about going to the doctor. Are we informing ourselves by going to the doctor and getting colonoscopies and mammograms and pap smears and all these tests that we're told to do? Or are we living in expectation and anticipation that our bodies are going to fail us? Because I think that's a lot of what it is. And I can't say for sure that's how it is for everyone. Some people do feel that to get tests is a way of informing themselves in order to eradicate their fears. But I think for a lot of people, myself included, that to go into those situations with even just the possibility that we could find something to be wrong, right? I go in for a mammogram. Why would I go in for a mammogram? Well, because I might have breast cancer. Well, that's starting from a position that I don't want to be in, right? I don't want to live within the reality that there's the potential for that. Do I acknowledge there's a potential for that? Yes, but our expectation and our belief that there's something like that that could go wrong is very much the reason that those things exist. It's in large part how breast cancer happens because we expect it, right? And it's way more nuanced than that, and that's certainly not the fullness of that, but it is very much true that if I believe it, I create it. And so I choose to focus on, like the Bible says, like so many different religions and gurus and wise people have said all throughout the ages, to focus on what's good and true and lovely and beautiful and virtuous, because I choose to experience those things in my life, not just for me as an individual, but for ourselves as a collective. And so focusing on destruction and disease and death and cancer, it's not to deny that those things are realities, but it is to acknowledge that by focusing on them, we perpetuate them. So let's remove our focus from that and focus on the beautiful things that we're wanting to create, like you're saying.
We only have this moment right now. That's the only thing we really have. When I'm living in fear, it's hard for me to focus on how beautiful life really is. We're all actively creating our own individual world, and we're creating this one collectively. So what kind of energy do you want to put into the world? Because the energy that we put into the world, if we put fear into the world, then we're going to see more of that in the world around us. And there's a lot of people afraid right now. The world doesn't need more fearful energy. It needs our light. It needs our positivity and our strength. Those are the things that I want to contribute to our family and to the world around me.
Yeah, and so a lot of that, it really just boils down to, I will not pay attention to this, and I will pay attention to this, and becoming masterful over our thoughts, right? That's just a daily practice for myself, and I think for anyone who's aware that we're not going to tap into this, we're going to tap into that, because it contributes to the change that we all want to see in the world, right? Everyone wants to see change in the world. We all do. We all want to live in a more peaceful, beautiful, loving, compassionate, abundant world. Well, we can, and we do by choosing to focus on that.
During this energetically potent moment in history, it's never been more important for us to realize our power to manifest the exact world we want to live in. What good does it do to become consumed by a vision of a dystopian future for humanity? The future is still being written by every one of us. What we place our focus on is what we create, and I choose to put my energy towards creating a better life for myself and those I love. Investing in my own self-development is the best way I can care for my family and ultimately make an impact on the world around me.